because everything comes in cycles,
Yeah.
like the seasons or the planets, and also in our own psychology, things return. It's almost like a compassionate system, because if we don't get it right the first time, we get another chance.
Yeah.
And we have endless opportunities to do it the right way.
Yeah.
That's the good thing about the cycle.
Yeah.
But of course, we don't interpret that way all the time, because we might say, "Oh, there you have it again. You know, there's the problem, the crisis again." But on the other hand, the good news is you get another opportunity there to do it again. And
hadn't thought about it that way, but that's actually very soothing to know.
yeah, I mean, you're a Kabbalist. You have these two forces on the side pills about Gevurah Chesed. You know,
Yeah.
Chesed says this is the compassion of the universe. You will have another opportunity. You know, I'm the endless benevolent Father or King, and I will give this to you that you can learn. But at the same time, you have Gevurah. It means, but there are consequences. You know,
Yeah.
so you can learn through time, and you can try again and again at the same time, but it comes with consequences. And that's also, in a sense, a mechanism of compassion, because through consequences we can learn. We can become conscious and evolve.
Yeah. Hello, Synchronauts. Welcome to another edition Roundtable, a recording with my dear friend and mentor, Mike Bais from Circle of Avalon. I'm Aida from Mexxicamelot, and we're very happy to be here today. So, Mike, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And as always, it's a real pleasure to be here with you and to do another podcast about these wonderful mythological topics.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've done a little bit of a recording, so we're going to have another interesting session. We were talking in our last program about the Ladies of the Wells. So this is part of the Arthurian mythology, the Arthurian mythology. Yeah. And obviously you're an expert. And before we begin, just tell us, you're writing a book about the Arthurian mythology. Is that correct?
I do. And this is very old news, as a matter of fact, because I started to write this manuscript years and years ago. I was working on two manuscripts. That was the second part of Kabbalistic View on Science, which I published in 2022. And then I was already working on this. Mm-hmm. And then I stopped working on it because of the Watkins book that that was actually given to me, Paths on the Tree of Wisdom. Mm-hmm. So that is all now finally done and published. So now I am again, But I'm working on it with actually, again, a lot of pleasure. And mainly a lot of editing at the moment. Yeah. It's already 300 pages thick. So there's quite a volume already. So it's a lot of editing and rewriting. Yeah.
So it's good that we're doing these programs, because then people will be interested, like, so what will there be in the book that is not being covered in this roundtable episode? So I'm really looking forward to as well to see what you are sharing in the book.
Yeah, well, this topic is definitely in it, because it's really important, and definitely, as we look at the world now, this part of the myth, the narrative, and also the Kabbalistic background is of extreme importance, I would say. Yeah, really is able to help us a little bit further. Yeah.
Yes, because I think that something that is missing right now from society is actually that we should have a mythology that will guide us to precisely like recreate maybe a place like Camelot, or I don't know, like we can look into other mythologies and look at something higher to look up to that will guide us and to be better people and to live more joyful and fulfilling lives in a way. And I don't think we have that, no, because if we look at mythologies from before, we have all of these heroes, and nowadays we don't really have any true real heroes. These are like this archetypal place has been taken by football players or rock and roll singers, or people who really, I mean, they might be wonderful, they might look like very powerful, but in the end, they're not really giving us a substance, no, or something real to connect with, because not everybody's gonna be an influencer, no, or not everybody's gonna be running around in in a football field or in a big scenario singing. We don't all get the chance to do that, but if we connect to mythology, then we can find what we are aligned to that, and then bring it into our own like lives, like everyday life, no?
Yeah, very necessary. And take up the responsibility, not just for yourself, but inherently for other people and even the world. You know, we're not separate from the world. And
Yeah,
everything that we do, even think, this is a very Kabbalistic idea and thought, but it also comes back in the round table mythology, has an effect upon, you know, the world around us. Everything that happens within is an immediate, has an immediate effect upon the world outside. So that's a spiritual responsibility there, not just social responsibility. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's even a like this sentence that is very much used in spiritual circles, no? As within, so without, no? As
Exactly
above,
that.
so below. So how do we
Yeah.
align to the right archetype to live a fulfilling life, no? And I think that's also a part of the reason why we're doing these recordings, to bring some light into these Kabbalistic teachings and also the roundtable teachings, so that people can take some of that and integrate it into their lives. And also, like, if, by the way, synchronauts, if you have any questions, you can leave it here in comments, and then we can address those questions. Like, everybody has been very quiet right now. No, we haven't received any questions for now, but it would be nice to hear from you who are listening to us. Like, if you have any questions, or if you want to know about any particular topic in these different arenas that Mike knows so much about, then you can leave your comments, and also let us know how you're feeling. I mean, the energies, and we were talking a little bit before recording, the energies right now, they're like wacky. Everything is very crazy. And now more than ever, we need a good mythology to like grasp onto, and so we can weather the storm, no? So it's good to have these spaces, but we would like to hear from you guys, no?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So, ready to begin our presentation?
Let's kick off. Yeah.
Let's get to it. Okay, so as we said the last time, we were talking about the ladies of the Wells, and we started talking a little bit about King Pellinor and his story about the broken sword. So I don't know if you would like to add anything else to that part of the mythology, dear Mike, and so we can continue talking about.
Shall we have just a go through to see if we can refresh all our memories and without telling the whole story? But first of all, King Pellinor is probably from the stories themselves is a king from Wales. So that may be historically true or not. Nevertheless, he was one of the brothers or the kin of the Grail kings, often called Anfortas or Pallas or Pelham. That means he was a king of the old world, and he attained the Grail. He was a Grail bearer, as they sometimes call it. You know, first you're a seeker, all of us are seekers, and some of them who find the Grail or spirit, they become the carriers of spirit. They haven't only seen it, but they have also become acquainted with it, and they have built a relationship, as they say in Kabbalah. They have reestablished a covenant with the holy presence within themselves. And that changes, of course, the quest. And that means Pellinor didn't have really anything to do any longer with the quest for the Holy Grail. So, and then the story says he was questing for the quest itself. A bit of an abstract, strange way of saying it. And from that moment on, he was questing for a particular animal or beast, the questing beast, very mysterious creature. At the same time, at the beginning days of Arthur before he was king. He was the one who encouraged Arthur to draw that sword out of the stone and to become king.
Oh.
Probably, it doesn't say in the story, probably because he already saw that the young boy, his fate was to become a very special king.
Okay.
You need to be one to know one. So probably Pellinor knew about this. Anyway, so going forward in time, and we talked about it in our last episode, there you have Pellinor standing at a well in the midst of the forest. You have the young Arthur at Camelot, you have the round table. Everyone is there for a gathering, a meeting, except for Pellinor, and they want him to be there, especially the young Arthur. So eventually they go to the place in the forest at the well, and Pellinor is very determined. He says, I need to be here. I need to guard this place, this well. Nobody knows why, but Pellinor is a very almost like ancient king. So he knows a bit more than most do. And he says, this is, of the utmost importance. And then Arthur tries in his own cocky manner to force Pellinor to come with him. And that starts to become like a fight, which is soon over, actually, because Arthur uses the sword from the stone. Again, we've talked about this. It's not Excalibur. This is the sword from the stone, or the sword of sovereignty that made him a king, so to speak. And that sword breaks upon the sword of Pellinor. And the problem then that ensues, that follows, is that Merlin, because of the whole dramatic situation, because Arthur is completely mesmerized and he's desperate because his sword broke, and he thinks this is the end of my kingship, because he relied on that sword for his own, that he found his own feeling about his kingship. And of course, it's not about a sword, it's about an inner establishment, a realization of who you are as a king. So Merlin puts like a sleeping spell over Pellinor, and Pellinor falls asleep, and Merlin takes Arthur away from the scene. And then what happens is that normally what happens in the whole cycle of the seasons is that the waters of the well will come to the surface, strangely enough. In the natural world, they don't. Or there has to be a lot of rain. But in a mysterious way, they come up and they flood the land. And with those waters, very mysterious ladies come from the lake in white dresses, and they carry silver chalices. It's not per se the grail, but it's almost like they are, because these cups within it, that particular substance, probably a kind of awen or heavenly dew, regenerates all nature, the vegetation, animals, but also human beings, travelers who pass by, and they offer freely to drink from it. And they are being, revitalized, regenerated, healed from whatever it is that is ailing or them, or what they're suffering from. And this happens. Only the thing is, of course, their guardian is sleeping. And this gives the opportunity to the antagonistic powers, because you also have evil kings in the whole scenery of the Grail quest, to invade the wells and to take the ladies of the wells and the chalices by force. It's sometimes even being called an assault, but also a rape. So that's a real serious thing going on there. And it's a rape of the sacred, because these are the waters that are coming from the deep earth, and in the Celtic underworld or otherworld tradition, this is heaven. This is an assault on the heavenly realms. And maybe the Lady of the Wells could be, I'm speculating now, compared to angelic figures. that are coming to the surface of the world to give their support and their sustenance. So this is the next part of the story that we were in. That moment when the antagonistic or evil powers, destructive, chaotic powers, come into the story.
It's interesting to note. I just want to go back a little bit before we continue to something you mentioned about the sword.
Yeah.
When Arthur pulls the sword out of the stone, then the stone, no, the stone, I'm sorry, the sword becomes the symbol of that sovereignty, or the symbol that will say, only if you have this sword, then you can be king. When the reality is that the sword is a symbol of, or an extension rather, of these qualities that are already in him and make him a king. So obviously, when this earthly sword breaks, then Arthur, because he identifies his kingship with that sword, and now the sword is broken, maybe he can say, or he could think like, oh, the sword is broken, then I'm broken, and therefore, like, I have no value anymore because I needed the object to justify that I am this who I am, no? And I think that if we take that into our modern world, that could also be like people who are looking for a social status, or to have the things, no, the nice things, like I'm gonna have a yacht or a mansion or a whatever, no, because that's gonna really say how much I am worth, no, or what's my value. When in reality, that can only be like an extension of the value that you have, but that doesn't mean that if you lose it, then you have less value. So I think that there's a very interesting lesson there for everyone to not think that we need to have a certain thing or be a certain way in order to have value in the world, no?
Exactly that. And the same theme you also see, for example, reoccurring within the Lord of the Rings, with the one who should be king, Aragorn, and there's a broken sword of his forefathers. He doesn't want to pick it up and to actually, reforge the sword because he thinks he's not worthy. So he has to go on this adventure, this quest, of the Fellowship of the Ring, to eventually find out that he indeed is a good king, and he uses the sword, but it's not the sword that gives him the right properties of becoming a king. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting to note. And I'm also like really in awe to how this mythology, it's so old in a way, like it's centuries old, but it's still so relevant to what we're living right now. Because if also we take this idea of the sacredness of the waters, and these ladies that are bringing the water, to nature and to the people. And this is what we're doing right now as humankind. We are devastating the earth. We are destroying everything in order to get resources. And these are the dark kings, no? Like they don't care about the sacredness of it. We could find a symbiotic way with nature, but because people are so obsessed with money and status and all of these, then they don't really care what they have to destroy in order to get money or whatever value they're looking for. So this is very relevant to our times as well, that this is happening. And I would say that this is happening because we have a disconnection from the sacred oneness that is all around us in nature, but that's also within us. Like we don't recognize the sacred within. And as I was saying before, as within, so without. If I don't recognize the sacred within, how am I to recognize the sacred without? If I ravage what I have inside, then I will ravage what is outside. So, wow.
And very much in particular, what we need, the inside, is this archetype of King Pelennor. Whether you're a man or a woman, doesn't matter. But this archetype, the ladies will follow, but this masculine archetype is exactly what we need to as a guardian of the sacred, or of the higher worlds in Kabbalah. Because, as we can see in the world, not many things are so sacred any longer. We do not guard the spiritual dimension, so to speak, within the world. And, apart from nature around us, we need a Palanor within us to make sure that we keep the gates open to the higher worlds. It sounds very abstract, but it means, in more hands-on terms, it means, where is, as the Greeks call it, where's our eusebia, or where is our awe and wonder for creation? And don't take it for granted, or don't try to rob it or to steal it. Nothing is ours eventually. That kind of understanding, that's also what we are talking about here.
Yeah.
And Pellinor understands it, but the antique Grail King, what we're going to talk about now, doesn't understand it at all. And that's also an archetype which is present within all of us. Sooner or later we all meet him. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to remember that we can relate to this. Like, these are not just like fairy tales or stories to tell children to get them to sleep. No, there is a lot of hidden knowledge behind these legends and these mythologies that we can use to enrich our lives. So it's good that we're bringing them back to the table, no? Bringing them back to the table.
That's what this is all about. Yeah.
Would you like to add anything else in relation with King Pellinor, or do you want to?
No, but we will talk about him anyway.
Okay.
But let's go to the next slide. And
this guy I know.
You know the guy.
I've had an archetypal encounter with him, but tell us about this guy over here, Mike. Who is this?
Yeah, this is also, like I said, a king. And this is one of the decks from John Matthews about the Camelot Oracle. It's a very neat deck if you are working, not just as an oracle, but also working with the archetypes. And like I said, this is more or less an ignorant king. He is literally looking down now into this grail, which he has stolen from one of the ladies of the lake. The ladies of the wells. But he is probably, therefore he's cloaked in black. He's completely occupied and attached to matter. So his kingdom is literally of the earth, and the whole lower face on the tree with all the lower centers or lower chakras are very operative in him. So it's all about wealth and money and possession. It's all about, sex. That's the second chakra, and also the empowerment of sex, and of course the third chakra or level on the tree is all about the animal power level, so status and ambition. And he is the representative of that lower king, which has to do with the lower face on the tree. And as we can see in the world, we have enough of these leaders who operate from that lower part. And of course, it's all in us as well. So Amagons doesn't understand anything about the spiritual realms. And he thinks, whatever I can take, I will claim for myself. And so that's what he and his fellowship do. And he doesn't realize what he has caused, because as soon as he takes these chalices from the well and from the ladies, and he brings them home, and some of the ladies he abducts, they all disappear or turn to dust. So he realizes that these heavenly gifts are they are not really earthly gifts. So they turn to dust, and he loses them. And of course, it has to do with the intention in Kabbalah, the kavanah behind the motivation behind his action. And that's just a personal consequence, that he loses what he has taken or stolen. The other consequence is that the waters and the ladies who have not been abducted, they actually go back into the well, and the waters are completely retracted from the earth. And so there's no spiritual nourishment of the physical world, and everything starts to crumble down and die. What we call in the Arthuriad, or the Arthurian mythos, the wasteland, the barren or desolate land. Nothing grows there. And not just on a physical level, but also on a psychological level. It means that, people start to feel completely devoid of spirit. They don't feel any inspiration any longer. They don't feel any nurturing from the spirit. They don't feel any divine connection. And that's the other consequence, apart from the physical consequence, when we act like this King Amagons. So he's the antithesis of King Palinor.
Yeah. And also, like, everything that you're saying right now, it reminds me of a certain president of a certain of a certain country very close to but also
Yeah,
even
no, of course.
one of the
Yeah.
presidents that, like, not that president we have right now, but the one before, he had very much that, also that energy that but what I'm thinking is like it, like, whatever they're trying to do, it cannot prevail in the long run, in the long term. It cannot prevail because the aim of their actions, they are not, as you say, they're not rooted in spirit. No, they're not rooted in the good for everybody. So there is an impact, obviously. There is a definite impact, and we're seeing it right now. I mean, it's very obvious that we're being pushed towards a wasteland, and I've already talked about this with you many times, and even before we recorded the state of my country, which it really breaks my heart to see what's happening. But now, listening to you talking about Amangons and the wasteland, like, this is what we're going through right now. And so if we don't know the archetypes and we fall into this category, then we're being like unconscious and just letting all of that darkness engulf us. But if we become aware of the thing, that not because I want something and I can go and take it, and it doesn't matter if I have to do whatever I have to do in order to get it, that's not going to take you very far away in life. There's going to be consequences for that. And I don't know, what can you tell us about the fact that maybe we have to go through this wasteland, we have to go through this dark night of the soul in a way, in order to reconnect to spirit, no? And we need these archetypes, these dark archetypes, to bring about the crisis, so that there will be an awakening in a way.
Certainly. And I mean, these are not just, it's easy for us because archetypes are often portrayed, like these guys as or ladies, as personalities, but they represent certain also transpersonal or cosmic ideas and dynamics. So, for example, we have in several mythologies the problem of the drying up of life, or the drying up of the heavens. We see this, for example, in Egyptian mythology, where the big snake, Apep, actually dries up the lands. We see it in old Sumerian, Babylonian mythology, where there's a certain dragon called Tiamat, and she prevents the heavenly waters to flow down into existence. And you need an intervention. And there you have Marduk, for example. And Marduk is like Zeus or Jupiter or even Indra. They're all thunderbolt throwing gods that drive away this entity, where it's a snake or a flying dragon, but it's always a monster. um, which claims the things for itself and closes off heaven from the earth, so to speak. In the Bible, we have Leviathan. It's
Ah,
a
yes.
very old entity. It's all the same, motive, the same cliche. And then we need this hero, so to speak. Here it is Pellinor, who guards, prevents, or even fights with these antagonistic powers. But the antagonistic powers are inherent within life. They are part of nature,
Yes.
and they work together. There needs to be tension, like between the two pillars on the tree of life, to come to a balance between, the coming up of the waters to the
Yeah.
surface and the flowing down. So this movement within creation is always there, expansion and contraction. So it's a naive and childish idea to think, like in a lot of movies, that we need to kill or destroy these powers like amalgams. They are a reality within nature, like all these dragons.
And they
And
serve
we
a
need to
they,
come
they
to...
serve a purpose as well.
No, definitely, yeah. It's like St. George and St. Michael, who's pushing back the dragon to make sure that the order is being established again within the universe. And on
Yeah.
a personal level, this is what we need to do. So this story is exactly about that. And if we notice on a personal level that our life, is drying up, I'm not in connection with spirit,
Yeah.
and I've lost creativity and inspiration. I'm in a wasteland, and you also notice this not because you feel yourself, dried up, so to speak, but
Uh,
sometimes because of that, your own kingdom, so to speak, your own life starts to testify with it. You don't see, you're not productive, nothing comes out of your hands. People
yeah.
start to reflect back at you. They say, oh, there's not much life in you. I feel you different. So the
Yeah.
wasteland is always spreading sooner or later. Of course, depends on how long it takes, how long you're in it as a person. But this is hands-on reality for most of us. Sooner or later, you're in a wasteland, and it
Yeah.
should be. It should happen. Yeah.
Okay. Can you expand a little bit more on why it should happen? I don't think we ever talked about this because I'm actually coming out of I'm trying to get out of my own wasteland right now. Like I'm in that process, coming out of
Yeah.
a dark
Yeah.
night of the soul. Um,
Yeah.
but why would we have to go through this? Tell us what would be the Kabbalistic perspective on that? The need to go through these kinds of dark cycles.
Yeah, because whether we are talking about a horizontal relationship between dualistic forces, there's also like a more vertical tension between what is above and what is below. And everything in our experience is a relative and works through contrast. So, to know the light, obviously, we have to know the darkness. By contrast, you know the light. So, by pain, you will know the relief. And we need to go through that darkness, or this barren wasteland, to know also how it feels and how we experience it, how spirit is actually invigorating us, and also to come to our own salvation and redemption. We need to know our own amalgams and how we are sabotaging ourselves in order to heal ourselves, to undo us from that influence. And that continuous tension is part of relative existence. Spirit has incarnated in this, or has become actually, the dualistic polarized universe, and therefore everything works through dualism and polarization. And the spiritual work is to get it into balance, and to at the same time honor these forces, because they are there for a reason. They support human conscious evolution. They're not against us. We have to work with them. That's the message there.
Maybe that's a problem also in the modern society that we're in. And that's something that I've struggled a lot with, that to be quiet, no? When the society is asking you to be productive, to be moving, to be doing, to be in expansion all the time. And actually, I had this conversation with my dad a few days ago, that we were talking about the state of things. And then I said, but I mean, this is supposed to happen, no? Because I think he was saying something about precisely the economics, no? And I mean, Mexico, we're so used to having economical problems. We always find a solution. Mexican people are very resilient. I really admire that from the culture. But he's like, oh, there's another recession coming. And I was like, we cannot be in expansion all the time. Like, they make us think in the Western world that that's the truth of life, no, that's a reality, when that's not the reality in nature. And eventually, I mean, these forces have to balance each other out. So obviously you cannot be in expansion all the time. And so for people who might be going through one of these dark phases, I think it's important to remember that it is okay to slow down. It is okay if you're not producing. It is okay. Like, that doesn't take away your value, just as we were talking about the sword and Arthur. It doesn't take away your value. You're just going through a certain phase that, yes, it's dark. It can be painful. It's not fun, no? I know that I've been in like a child in a tantrum for a while, because why am I going through this? But there is a reason why. There is a silver lining on the other side. And you just have to go with the side, just like going into the winter. And then the time for winter is to just go within and prepare the seeds for the next spring. Right now is not the time for action, no? And then be ready when the time for action comes, then go for it. But if you're going through this moment of contraction, then let it be. Don't fight it. Just like recognize it for what it is, take the lessons from it, and just wait, weather the storm and wait for the new cycle. It's all cyclical anyway. So, but learning that.
No, it's definitely, and because everything comes in cycles, like the seasons or the planets, and also in our own psychology, things return. It's almost like a compassionate system, because if we don't get it right the first time, we get another chance. And we have endless opportunities to do it the right way. That's the good thing about the cycle. But of course, we don't interpret that way all the time, because we might say, oh, there you have it again, there's the problem, another crisis again. But on the other hand, the good news is you get another opportunity there to do it again. And
I hadn't thought about it that way, but that's actually very soothing to know.
Yeah, I mean, you're a Kabbalist. You have these two forces on the side pillows about Gevurah Chesed. Chesed says this is the compassion of the universe. You will have another opportunity. I'm the endless benevolent Father or King, and I will give this to you that you can learn. But at the same time, you have Gevurah. It means, but there are consequences. So you can learn through time, and you can try again and again at the same time, but it comes with consequences. And that's also, in a sense, a mechanism of compassion, because through consequences we can learn. We can become conscious and evolve.
I think also I'm sorry, I just think also that
go ahead.
Thinking about it in a different way, because we have a saying here in Mexico, no, that you stumble twice with the same stone, no? And that's like, how could you already knew that the stone was there, and then you're walking and again you stumble upon it, no? Like, what is wrong with you? And sometimes when we go through these kinds of lessons or challenges and we fall into the same traps, sometimes the Gevurah side might come and be like, oh, you're not so brilliant. Why did you fall again for the same thing? And right now what you're telling us is you can also turn into compassion and say, okay, yes, I made a similar mistake, if not the same mistake again. But what can I learn from this? I have an opportunity to make things right and do it differently this time. Or even though I stumbled with the stone, maybe my next steps will be different than they were the last time.
exactly.
So
And that is the
don't feel
consciousness
bad.
in the middle, in
Yeah,
Tiferet. Yeah,
exactly.
it
So like,
should eventually balance out in the center where we say, yeah, like you said, why is this happening? And what can I really do with it? Yeah.
yeah,
And Amagons is not of that kind. It's not, the archetype doesn't represent any conscious evolution.
no, it's the
But at the
opposite.
same time, yeah, the opposite. But it tells us that this is the state that we're all in of ignorance. Sometimes being said in certain tradition that the highest form of evil is ignorance. And then they mean not just ignorance about anything, but ignorance about the divine. And the greatest good is divinity, is the sacred within creation. Those are actually the ladies of the wells are the representatives in this story, of the higher worlds or the heavenly realms.
Okay.
So to be aware of them and to cherish them, uh, and to be in awe with what is happening, that is the opposite of being ignorant. It's the good with a capital G, so to speak. Yeah. And that's interesting as another thing, among many, about this particular story, because what happens afterwards is Pellinor, he reestablishes the guardianship around it and takes the whole um, the whole of Camelot with it. So every knight of the Round Table is being appointed to a certain lady of the Wells as a
Ah,
guardian.
okay.
So
Wow.
they become the guardians of the wells. They become the guardian of the sacred well or the higher worlds within Kabbalah,
Wow.
and therefore of the divine feminine or the
Wow.
sacred feminine, whatever you want to call that. Um, that's also like a turn in history when you see when these kind of stories are happening from 500 AD and later until the Middle Ages, and the position of women. I'm not talking about the feminine per se, but about women. So Camelot is also about guardianship over the sacred feminine, or the Grail, or the Shekhinah in Kabbalah.
Hmm.
And of course that also works out in stories like they save damsels in distress, as they sometimes say.
Yeah.
They save them from the hands of evil guys or kings like Amazons. Um, so that's on different levels. That's another part of this story, which is, I think, very relevant.
Yes,
Yeah.
like both the masculine and the feminine coexisting, and remembering that we all have those energies. Not because you're a woman that means that you only have
No,
feminine.
no,
You,
exactly.
there are sometimes you need to be masculine, and vice versa. Also, a man sometimes needs to get in touch with his feminine side and find that balance between them, and know that we all have them, just like the two pillars on the tree.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, this is very good that you emphasize this, because I had throughout the years with teaching the round table some misunderstandings about the masculine and feminine. And that, well, I'm not talking here, or the story is not talking about, the fragility of women and they need to be saved by some kind of superior masculinity. No, this is indeed about the masculine and the feminine within ourselves. And
Yeah,
that the feminine also within Kabbalah is, it's like the sacred womb. It's the sacred space that you are, even within your own body. So are
exactly.
you a guardian of your own body, like your physical body, as a temple of the Holy Spirit?
Yeah,
Um, so the masculine is the guardian of the sacred vessel. So be very aware, for example, what you eat, how you take care of it, how you nurture it. It's a very day-to-day example, but that's exactly what we are talking about here. So thank you for emphasizing that. Yeah,
yeah. Just a reminder that there is a nature of the feminine and there's a nature of the masculine, and you
yeah,
cannot go against that. And not, it doesn't necessarily mean that the feminine is weak and the masculine is strong. It's just that they are
definitely not.
different polarities of the same energy, and they complement each other. And it's not
Yeah.
that one is better than the other. They both are needed and they are both present.
Yeah.
Sorry, in everyday life, whether we are aware of it or not. So, yeah.
They all come with particular gifts and qualities. Like in the very beginning, Arthur comes with a sword. He is the king within us, within all of us. And then the queen comes and she brings the round table. She brings the table of stars, the table of wisdom. So the feminine comes often with wisdom, with Sophia, the feminine part, and the masculine part, or the knights of the round table, come with certain modes of action within us. And we talked about this before, and we will probably in the future, is,
Surely.
The Lancelot within you and me as a man and a woman, and in everyone, has a particular mode of action. And the feminine archetypes or characters in the story, they have different functions. They're all part of us. They're part of the whole psyche. Yeah. And then it becomes so much richer than trying to pin them down or to limit them just to men and women archetypes. No, they're masculine and feminine archetypes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more complex than we may think that it is. But well, okay. So we will have to continue this conversation in our next program. We knew that it would take more than one program, and apparently it will take more than two to continue this really, really amazing topic. So, dear Mike, tell us, how can people connect with you if they want to buy your books, to take a class, or to have any kind of consultation with you? How can people reach out to you?
Sure. Yeah. Well, you can find me on two websites. That is circleofavalon.nl from the Netherlands. It's all in English. And then we have KabbalahMysticalSchool.com. So there you can find a few things. Very up to date is also my Facebook page, mikebais, and Circle of Avalon. So they are like related to each other. So you can see my posts and everything. And you can also send me an email, mikebais@rocketmail.com. If you have any questions of whatever nature to do with Kabbalah Roundtable, then you're very welcome. And there you find also my books, my Kabbalah books mainly, and some other stuff that is going on in the future. Yeah.
Excellent. Anything else that you would like to say, Mike, before we say goodbye for now?
No, we always try to make it practical.
Yeah.
So let's say for everyone or anyone who wants to embrace the myth and the stories that we present here in a way that you can really apply it in daily life, I would say, well, have a good look at if the waters within your own life, if they are flowing, yes or no, and then the reason why. Because the sabotaging of Amazons is most of the time coming from the inside. And so it's very good to try to identify what is going on there. And that identification is very important in the first place. Yeah. Or, of course, that there's an Amazons in your external surroundings. That's also very possible.
Yeah.
So I would say that that's a very appropriate, a little exercise to do. And I will definitely join.
Well, thank you so much, dear Mike. Thank you, Synchronauts. Remember, if you want to leave any questions here in the comments for Mike, or you know how to reach him.
Yeah, wonderful.
And so we don't know when we will be back, but we will be back, definitely.
Of course we will.
Until then, see you very soon. Bye.
Thank you, Baida. Thank you.